I will always look back on StarCraft as the game where we really found our feet as storytellers, where words and art and sound and design all just kind of smashed together to create a very distinct expression of immersion.
StarCraft is such an amazing universe. It's been such a part of Blizzard for so many years.
Now it's just a matter of time of reflecting, taking a step back, recognizing what an amazing experience it's been and how many people it's touched.
StarCraft opened up us to the world and the world to us.
We're able to bring this community together that transcends age, gender, religious preference, country borders. That's really special and really powerful.
Artists in the company were really interested in drawing something other than fantasy at the time because they'd been working on Warcraft 1 and then Warcraft 2, and they're like, hey, let's do something science fiction.
We weren't thinking about, hey, what can be super successful? We just wanted to make something that we would enjoy playing.
It was fun to begin to envision worlds and empires and alien species in conflict. It was a dream opportunity.
A lot of us just started doodling during lunch. People just started drawing all sorts of different things, and I remember Sam drawing some crazy characters without mouths and stuff like that, and it was kind of like these little moments of just inspiration.
We were working on the ideas for StarCraft, and it was either CES or E3 that was coming up. And we're like, well, we need something. We're like, well, we don't have anything. So we just sort of took the structure that we had already made and just started building the preliminary races of like the Zerg. And we went to the show, and it looked like everyone said Warcraft in space.
Orcs in space.
Orcs in space.
Oh, orcs in space. I know what this is. I'm like, no, this is going to be completely unique characters and 3 races.
We got our asses kicked. I mean, you know, and that was the cool thing about Blizzard, right? And still today is just, you know, anytime we see a challenge, we rise to it.
We had to go back and say, all right, what do we do to completely change the art style and everything about it to make it be its own game?
Monday morning, we had scrapped the complete game, had decided that we were going to go in a totally different direction, rewrite the engine, and really start delving into the 3D aspect.
We had a guy named Dwayne Stinnett who did 3D, and he worked on this mech, and he just did this mech animation, right? Kind of just a proof of concept, like, hey, this might be cool. Samwise went in and kind of beefed up the mech and tricked it out, and then they showed this animation to everybody, and everybody said, okay, this is it. This could be the sci-fi RTS that we've been talking about.
Based on those experiments, I think we all realized pretty quickly that, like, yeah, this is the look for this game. This is what makes it distinct.
And somewhere in there is where I realized that all the new ideas for the design and how it could be different didn't mesh with what we already had. Your ideas are great, but we need 3 months to completely rewrite everything from scratch if you want to do all these ideas.
The legend says that those in power called upon Bob Fitch, and he sequestered himself from everybody and locked himself in a small office that still had windows and doors, and he could leave whenever he wanted. But he was locked in there for months at a time. His wife gave birth, and he was in there with the baby in a drawer, rocking it while he's programming with his left hand.
People were bringing me food at my desk, and no one was telling me to do this. I just wanted to do it because I wanted to have a great game.
Within a few months, all the old stuff was out and all the new stuff was in, and, you know, again, like when the art getting reborn, the engine getting reborn, that's the birth of StarCraft and Bob's kid.
So getting StarCraft to market was pretty arduous. It was easily the hardest crunch we had done up to that time.
There was a lot of balance that needed to be done. There were a lot of bugs, and at that time, we were the play testers.
But we were learning. We didn't really know what we were supposed to do, so we did a lot of just playing the game over and over again.
It got to a point where when I did go home and get some sleep, I was dreaming about playing StarCraft.
And every time we thought we were close to done, we discovered more things that we really wanted to do that really would make it the StarCraft it ended up being.
And we would say this to people about how we were progressing, because everybody was like, when are you going to ship this damn thing? And we're like, we're working constantly, 7 days a week.
Someone came up to me and said, "Hey, are you working on that Starcraft game?" And I thought, yeah, this is the first time I had been recognized with a Blizzard shirt. And the guy, all he said was, "You need to get back to work and finish that game for me." And I thought, holy cow, we're onto something here.
It took longer to cook than anything we had done before that time.
And back then, we didn't have the internet to do a quick patch every time you needed to do something. So it really did matter. But we were passionate about it, and we got their stuff done. You know, we worked really hard.
It was a madly different time, but it was fantastic.
I did not have a gray hair before StarCraft. After StarCraft, gray.
Oh, I remember when StarCraft 1 came out, and it's one of the best feelings.
We definitely believed that we had created something that was really special.
And I remember Chris Metzen in a big meeting basically saying we just finished the greatest RTS ever made. And we all agreed and sat there and got really drunk.
One of the coolest things is I went down to the QA area. You know, these guys have been testing the game around the clock for months. They were there playing the game. Wow, you guys are here playing the game. You guys could be home sleeping. That was pretty awesome.
The reception to StarCraft, almost right out of the gate, was tremendously validating. It was kind of a proof that, like, we're on the right track. This is how we should approach everything from here on out.
It was one of our first Game of the Years that Blizzard had as Blizzard.
We always look to do the best we can, and we just hope that the fans appreciate it and the critics appreciate the game. But to actually see them come back and give those positive reviews and start seeing the outpour of support for the game, it was really awesome.
I knew it was going to be a great game, but I had no experience with what a great game means in terms of how many people start adoring it and changing their lives around it, getting tattoos of things from the game, and what that really means when you get that devotion and that following. What happened after StarCraft 1 is we essentially just started right in on Brood War because we wanted to release it fast, and so another crunch started. I got a little bit of time off. Got to spend a little bit of time with the new kid, right?
Brood War was so much more than an expansion, but it was really a whole new game. I mean, the amount of work that went into it, the amount of new content that was in there, the technical advancements that happened with that game.
It actually radically changed the way that you'd play the Terran, Protoss, and Zerg. It is actually what made StarCraft, StarCraft.
I picked up StarCraft 1 in, I think, 1999. I got my first computer ever. Came home, and there was this manual that was filled with a ridiculous amount of story content and really cool art. And I ended up reading the manual for several hours first and getting kind of sucked into this crazy world.
StarCraft 1 meant a lot to me. It was a game that all my friends were playing in, I think it was high school at the time. Pretty much everyone gathered together. We were doing LAN parties, playing that thing just non-stop. And it was a game that, like, I grew really close to really quickly. It was the reason I came to Blizzard. It's a huge reason for why I'm on this team.
I was first introduced to StarCraft 1 in college when I was playing a lot of video games with my friends, but I noticed a lot of them were going to the computer labs playing StarCraft Brood War. And so that was my first introduction to it.
I think I was in high school when the game came out, and then I was playing it a lot. I used to go to PC rooms pretty often, like after school, almost every day, except on Thursdays, because on Thursdays, that was the first televised esport event going on in Korea.
My first exposure to any of the professional stuff was seeing Korea and how popular it was there and watching them play, seeing videos of them where the fingers are moving beyond my capability of even doing my fingers right now with nothing happening, and yet they're making the game move at that speed. It was incredible.
Seeing him rain for the first time, like dodge a lurker shot, I'm like, you really can't do that, right? You can't do that. I remember like looking at programmers like, he shouldn't be able to do that, right?
Holy crap, we never tested for this. It's going to crash. There's going to be a problem with the UI. There's going to be a problem with the game in general because it was so light years beyond what we ever did in testing.
In Korea, they were showing StarCraft Brood War on television. The pro gamers were fully sponsored with awesome uniforms, and they had fangirls and fanboys holding up signs. It was insane.
Being able to see these gamers become superstars, this was their sport, this was their thing, and they were the best in the world. esports was born in Korea, and it was born with StarCraft.
When I joined the team, StarCraft 2 was going to be a single game, and it was so important for us to get it right.
For the development of StarCraft 2, there were certain expectations, and those were huge expectations to meet. But there was also, how are we going to make it different and better?
We knew that the multiplayer was going to be very conservative in its approach. There was going to be a siege tank, right? There was going to be a Marine, there was going to be a Zealot. This was going to be this game. A lot of players were looking for something more from us as well, and so we felt like the campaign would be an area where we could do more.
We knew that we wanted to keep Jim Raynor, Sarah Kerrigan, a lot of the classic characters from the first game, because people who weren't necessarily the super multiplayer esports fans, they were the single-player campaign fans. They're just as ravenous on this game as the multiplayer fans. You know, they want to know what's happening next, so we continued the storyline.
Chris Metzen in particular, he wanted to push the storytelling to a new level, something that no other game has done. It was a big undertaking.
Next thing I know, I'm sitting in script meetings where we're looking at big old thick scripts, and we're like, wow, we have completely jumped into the deep end of the pool. But we were super excited, and now we had 2 weapons to tell stories, the pre-render and then the real time, and this really cool interweaving of big story moments and the smaller moments that were just as critical.
All in a day's work, General.
We were looking at a game that was probably 70 to 80 missions, and we didn't want to cut it for the story, because we liked the story that we were telling, and we didn't want to cut it for the choices you get in the campaign. And so we're looking at this and going, well, what are we going to do? We can't do 80 missions and not be done before probably 2015.
So we made the decision to cut it into 3, and it was kind of this, oh God, what have we done, right? Like, now we really can do this, but we gotta deliver on it.
I was at the reveal of StarCraft 2 at the Worldwide Invitational in Seoul, and we were very proud of StarCraft 2. We were very proud of what we had built, but you just, at some level, at some artistic level, you just didn't know, would people respond to it? I remember sitting in that kind of Olympic stadium.
This was a massive Olympic arena, and it was packed to the gills with people.
The energy was really intense, and it was bone quiet in the place as they played that trailer we had developed, the Building a Better Marine.
My heart's racing because I'm hoping that the piece is going to play well and everyone's going to understand it and enjoy it.
And at the end he says, well, hell, it's about time. Of course, in that stadium, that line played in Korean.
드디어 올 것이 왔군.
The crowd went absolutely nuts. The whole audience, it just sounded like a roar.
This thunder rolled from the back of this auditorium all the way down. It was one of those great moments I will always remember. One of the very most special moments in my career so far.
The coolest thing about it was we were finally able to say the word StarCraft 2.
Are you ready for StarCraft 2?
I think there was a tremendous amount of excitement in general at the company that we were finally getting StarCraft 2 out. In a way, it showed how we had found balance as a company.
StarCraft 2 is one of the best things we've ever done, and I think from a sequel perspective, it's one of the best sequels I think that's ever been made, and probably the best one we've made.
So the goals for Heart of the Swarm were to really continue that story that we started in Wings of Liberty and tell it from the Zerg perspective, or more so, the Kerrigan perspective.
I never gave up on you, Sarah. Don't you give up on us!
In addition to being the second chapter in the StarCraft storyline focused on the Zerg, I think that Swarm was an opportunity to really look at game balance and address some of the issues that had come up and become apparent with Wings of Liberty.
We had to kind of stop after Wings of Liberty and think about, okay, what is the Zerg perspective on this? How are we going to make it so it's not just, the old game with a Zerg skin on it? That's the last thing we wanted to do. So I think we kind of stripped everything down and we rebuilt it back up from that Zerg point of view.
We wanted people to experience what it's like to play the monsters, to be the monster.
We really wanted to focus it down to Kerrigan's vengeance, to her bringing the Swarm together, to finding new and interesting resources, and sort of building this custom-made Swarm which you could just shove down Arturus' throat.
You made us all into monsters.
We knew the world, we knew the style, we knew the characters, we knew the units and races. We were just continuing the story. We were at home and familiar, and we were able to just, blaze forward and got the game done in a fraction of the time that it took to do Wings.
Pulls out the clutch victory. GG breaks the curse. He is overwhelmed with excitement. Those hallucinated voice rays almost.
Going into the development for Heart of the Swarm, we knew we had a game that was heavy into esports, so there was a big drive to bring a refreshed experience around the esports scene. So that was new units for multiplayer for all of our races, some new diversity and new strategies that could be utilized through those units.
I think the legacy of the whole Starcraft franchise in general, really, the strongest point is going to be the esports aspect, the multiplayer aspect, the competitive nature. You and a friend going head-to-head with these aliens and cool robots and, mechs and everything. People love that. It's so geeky.
I read somewhere online saying StarCraft 2 is this generation's chess, but I think it's a little more than that because it's like chess in terms of the strategy component, but how fast you make those strategic decisions also come into play. So I think it's those two things that made it kind of take off as a esport.
I think the only way you can really have a esport for a game is if you have a community that loves it and celebrates it. And so we've been very fortunate to have such an amazing esports community. And I think it's really up to them on how long esports will continue for StarCraft.
The esports community is thriving right now, and so we're trying to give them as much support as possible with this last expansion.
The main goal of Legacy of the Void is this is our final chapter of StarCraft 2. The secondary goal was to make sure that the Protoss had their own unique, awesome campaign.
The fact that Legacy is ending with the Protoss is so fitting because you look at this ancient race and what they embody, and so much of it started there with them, and now everything is coming back full circle.
It was very important to us to make sure that the Protoss campaign felt like a Protoss campaign, and that Protoss players in no way felt that they had been cheated in their campaign by having to handle these heavy elements that have been in the game since Wings of Liberty. Raynor, Kerrigan, where all that stuff is going is a very important element of StarCraft 2. In fact, it's at the core.
Which is why we wanted to have the epilogue missions, because we wanted Protoss to have their ending, and then the final ending, wrapping up all the Terran, Protoss, and Zerg together to complete their journey.
We thought about how to end the trilogy and thought long and hard about the relationship with her and Jim, and there's this cool, quaint little moment with Jim back at the bar, and we're like, wouldn't it be cool if, maybe it's a dream, maybe it's not, but this girl walks into the bar, right?
You about ready to get out of here, cowboy?
Hell, it's about time.
What does the future have in store for StarCraft? That's ironic. For my money, there's 1,000 stories to tell.
Kapruluk's sector is a big place.
There's so much to explore. And not only that, but we have a passionate player base that wants more.
We'll take a breather, and next thing you know, we'll be on the carpet drawing again, and the cycle will start again, and all of a sudden we'll be off in the stars.
The story of StarCraft goes on in so many ways, and I'd love for us as developers to be there in whatever capacity we can. We will certainly be playing with you, at the very least, but I certainly think that, balance changes, map changes, all of that stuff we can keep doing for many, many years to come.
I think StarCraft's really where we found our voice and found our confidence.
It's a franchise that I'm very proud to have been part of.
During the development process and all the hours that we spent playing together in the office, it became and still is my favorite game of all time.
I think StarCraft to me is what started it all. It is the heart of esports for me, and it will always be very near and dear to my heart.
I loved it. I really came to Blizzard just to work on StarCraft 2, so it's been like a dream.
Absolutely. Kind of a piece of me is in that game.
It is like a giant family of people working together, people that are writing code, people that are doing art, and then people that are playing, loving, giving the feedback that we take in and then create the next evolution of the game. For me to have these great people working on this as comrades in arms is awesome, and it extends out to the community playing the game as well.